I have a question for you.
Yeah,
You graduated IIT Bombay. You graduated IIM Ahmedabad.
very unfortunate.
And you told me that you would also want to pursue UPSC.
I mean,
How stupid are you?
that is not a question for debate. We all know the answer. But
Hey guys, welcome to Brains and Bangalore. This is another attempt after multiple attempts to create a decent episode of Brains and Bangalore. So here today we'll be discussing about a very, very well spoken about topic, which is comparing the IIT with the civil servants. When I say comparing, it's not a straight out comparing. It's just to explore the journeys of post IIT grad and then how the civil service life journey is. Here we have Ayush, who is IITian himself, and his dad is a civil servant, so we have a lot of sample here. I'm Praveen Kumar. I'm a MBBS graduate, but I'm not a doctor clinical. I don't practice clinical medicine. So let's go ahead with the podcast. So Ayush, you want to introduce especially, yourself or?
yeah, so the comparison between IIT grads and the civil servants, the IAS officers majorly known. So I would say that being myself graduate from IIT Bombay, and I have seen my dad working as a civil servant, not an IAS, some different type of IXS, whatever you want to call it. So I've seen both sides of the coin, and now that I'm working for private sector, I can also see the differences that the lifestyle that my dad had and now what I'm trying to achieve. So I'll just try to put my perspective out in this video and we'll see.
Absolutely. So there's this phenomenon, where people from different walks of careers, like let's say doctors pursuing IAS, IITians pursuing IAS, or people from different walks of life, pursue civil exams, not IAS especially. All the civil service exams, and there are multiple reasons behind that. Now we'll first discuss what are the motivations behind kind of people switching careers and going into IAS, and then we'll try to get into the deeper aspects of it. So Ayush, why do you think?
It's power. Like what else is there? If somebody wanted to serve their country, they could have done that as a doctor as well, as an engineer as well. There are multiple ways. I think maybe very few percentage of people wanted to try the other way of civil servants. Otherwise, it's just power, the power that it brings in the society, which they really didn't find as appealing in doctory or medical and IIT and being a management grad. So to me, it just comes down to that. But there are multiple other reasons. What do you think?
So I personally believe power is one factor. I think I personally feel the monetary side of it is a bigger motivation than the power side of it. For some reason, I just feel the amount of the monetary gains that they are hoping to get out of, let's say, any civil CXS. Not the CXS, IXS, which could be IAS, IFS, or IPS, any of that. The amount of the monetary attachment. Actually, when you see the government pays for these, they're not like superbly awesome. They're all fair. They're all normal, which are not extraordinarily high or anything. But I personally feel, I don't know, people might agree, people might not agree. I personally feel
I don't agree at all, because you earn way more if you have done engineering from a good IIT, or if you have done like MBA from a good B school. You're earning like 2 to 3 times in first 10 years only, within first 10 years.
Than
an IAS officer, because their salaries are fixed. We know that the first pay scale starts at 56,100 something. So
I have a question for you here.
Yeah.
Do you think the person who is preparing for any civil service exam, do you think he relies on his salary as his total source of income, or do you think at the back of his mind he knows he can corrupt the shit out of the system?
See, that's the point. If you, at the end of the day, you want good money in your house, you would go to a private sector job. They're going to public sector thinking that they can get money, but easily, working 9 to 5. That's it. It's a government work, so as it's infamous for its slow, it's easy. Inefficiencies are there. So they're just getting money for not doing that much work. And there's job security as well. You lose your government job, sector job. It's very hard to lose that. So the ease to get the money is much more important than getting the money itself. Because if you really want to get money, then you will never achieve the highest in public sector. To reach the stars, you have to get into private.
I mean, of course, business is the place where you can like kind of make fortunes. You know, at least even if it's a very small percentage of people, if you want to make fortune, business is one of the most fertile place. But what my question precisely was that, let's say there are 100 people, in Delhi or Bangalore somewhere sitting prepping for some of the civil service exams. Do you think they associate their financial earnings with the salaries of the civil service exams, or do you think they subconsciously know that if at all they get that power, if at all they clear the exams and they get into that civil whatever post, do you think they subconsciously also know that they can make a lot of money under the table do you think a person who is 24 years old who is prepping for the exam keeps this in back of mind, or do you think at that point of time they really don't care
you do not put a black and white on corruption. Like, not everyone will go there and think I will be the most saint person. Not everyone wants to become a Raja of India.
But A Raja is a politician, but that's
I mean the speak of corruption and all.
Yeah.
So people go there. I think this is what I think is like, if they can get some sort of easy money, some sort of like small light corruption here and there, and maybe some 1,000 rupees extra. Maybe that's what I'm thinking from a person who's an aspirant. Person who's trying to become an IEXS whatever. But other than that, it's just good amount of power, really stable job, security, and you're just living like your life is on tracks now. You're not going to worry about the job. That is a very appealing thing about the government sector.
Right. And what do you think is this phenomenon that drives so many doctors who also are fairly stable in their jobs? Like, there's no shortage of jobs for doctors as of today at least.
Yeah.
And IITians, coming from the cream IITs, let's say Bombay or Delhi, so many people end up, prepping for these UPSC exams and all that. Why do you think that phenomenon is there? I don't think job is one of the, a big problem statement there.
I mean, when you look at, you would know it better, but when you look at the way the appeal for a job for doctors goes, it's like if you're running your own clinic, you're practically running a business. You have to generate leads, you have to do marketing, you have to get the patients to your place. Even though there's a lot of shortage of doctors, when you go to some good cities, you'll find too many doctors in one area, they will have to compete with each other and all. The second part of that is when you get a job in some medical college or some other place, you're getting a constant salary in even some big hospitals like the super specialty hospitals. You get a constant salary and some commission on every patient you make. And then you go to government jobs. Sometimes you just get a management role. Sometimes you're just sitting in a government post office and just visit, like you get some 4 or 5 visits in a month. So you think it's a constant job, you're not constant salary, you're not going to look for the opportunities, and the work is also less.
You're talking about the IAS as of now, or did you define the doctors as the government jobs?
No, the government jobs.
Government jobs in general.
Yeah,
that is there. But okay, what do you think? Why do you think the IITians who have let's say who are like one of the brightest people in the country, considering the exams they they crack and all that, after all that, they end up in Rajendra Nagar in Delhi prepping for IAS. Why do you think that happens?
I mean, you get every spectrum of people in IITs. These are huge colleges. Like Bombay takes some 1,000 students, and then the top 5 only takes around 4,000, 5,000 students. Right. So, in among 5,000 people, if you pick randomly out of India, you will get IAS aspirants always. So that is there. IIT Delhi is known for people who have decided in their 12th only that they want to pursue some sort of civil services. So they take IIT Delhi, and by the time they get into second year of IIT, they start prepping for IAS civil services.
Really?
Yeah, that is very common. A lot of people do
People in IIT start prepping for civil services?
Yes, they went to IIT Delhi thinking that it will be easier for them to get coaching for UPSC later. Yeah.
Wow.
You don't get into IIT because you have interest in physics or maths. You get into IIT because you scored good on that day, and people from IIT get better jobs. That's it. I don't even know how many people actually had interest in PECM. Yeah.
So we also discussed about the sunk cost fallacy.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just explain sunk cost fallacy very briefly before we discuss on that. So sunk cost fallacy is where when you invest a certain amount of time, energy or money in something, and then after a point you realize that it is not working, but now you're too afraid to let go because the sunk cost fallacy will trick you into thinking that if you let go, you're losing all your effort, time and energy, whatever you have put in a certain thing. This is the phenomenon of sunk cost fallacy. So sunk cost fallacy, the phenomenon of sunk cost fallacy, how hardly does it play out in the IAS?
I can see where you're going. So people prepare for 5 years, for 4 years, like they've given 3-4 attempts on like civil service exam, UPSC, and that's like if they have an idea after second or third attempt that they can never do it, I don't know what sort of perseverance will ever help them, and thinking like if I've already used up my 3 years of my life on this, then I'll keep doing this and maybe I'll get it one day because I've wasted so much of my life. And that's just stupid talk.
I mean, but you know you do understand how hardly it plays out, right? A person who's, let's say, prepping for a UPSC for 3 years, and let's say on the third year he somehow managed to crack the prelims and then he wrote the mains and his score was close to getting in but couldn't get in. Now, he knows he's at the borderline, he knows he has already spent like 3 years. Now, if he gives up, he's giving up all that effort and it's all going down the drain kind of, thing, which makes them keep sticking on.
Yeah, so the point of sunk cost fallacy is whatever cost you have borne in the past has done nothing for any of your future gains, has done nothing. So you can just ignore that cost because it's for nothing and you just leave. But let's say you're preparing every year and every year you are getting somewhat better grades, you're improving, and you see around like fourth attempt you will actually crack it. Then that cost, that the year-long time that you gave to UPSC, that cost was not for nothing. So if you see major improvements, that's not sunk cost fallacy then.
But do you think the guy who's a guy or girl who is preparing, do you think they look at it in that objective manner, or they just look at
if for 3 years your price or marks are constant or even decreasing, then the cost is for nothing. That's it. But if you're improving and you see that the improvement can crack, makes sense. This is just purely logical talk, but nobody can actually gauge exactly how much they are doing better. Maybe you got nearly there this year, but next year you again fail. So it's not that scientific, right?
So this is one of the question in my mind, like the question in my mind.
No, I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
I'll ask that being an IITian is pretty much a dream of every parent of this India. So for their children, I don't know about the children, but the parents want that for sure. And when they are like 17, 18, and being an IAS again is dream of many families, many people, that they want to become an IAS. So both are the dreams that both are really sought after. But becoming an IITian and becoming an IAS officer, after you do that, after you cross that hard stream, which is also comparable, not that comparable, IIT I think is easier, but yeah, comparable. After crossing that hard stream, how much are you actually benefiting the world, the nation, or maybe just yourself? That result, that outcome, is it worth it in the both the cases, or is it worth it in one case, or what? What do you think?
See, it really kind of, for me at least, it boils down to this particular thing is, what is that person, whoever is going through this hard stream, IIS, IIT, all of this, is he functioning in his full senses, like, is he swayed by the ideas of the parents or the people, the kids around them, or is he independently thinking and doing whatever he's doing?
We will assume they are swayed. We'll assume that.
So your question, can you just summarize it in one line so that I can kind of...
like the impact that you get after crossing these...
For a single guy doing both of it.
For a single guy doing an IIT and another guy doing IAS, the impact that they will have on the country, the nation.
Yes. So, my personal belief is that net, when you take, let's say, a sample of 100 IITians and 100 IAS officers, or let's say 1000 IITians or 1000 IAS officers, I personally believe that 1000 IITians who we have taken net on a total would have added more value to the country, would add more value to the country economically or technologically or in any sense, more than the net 1000 IAS officers. I personally believe when you compare the IITians against the IAS officers in terms of how much value they contribute to the country in a whole, I absolutely 100% believe the IITians in India have added $1 trillion for the economy.
Agreed.
As a whole.
Agreed.
The IAS officers have, brought in policies, and probably they are taking care of the bureaucracy and they're doing all of that. But since they're in a system where it is bound to be inefficient because of all the politics above them and all the people below them and them being in between, I personally feel they have not contributed, to the country in any way comparable to the IITians. The reason I personally, I personally feel that IITians have added a lot of value for the country is that you see so many founders coming out of these, let's say IIT, Delhi, Bombay, whatever, this Kharagpur, all of this. So many people who have come out of these IITs and started something. There are so many people who have failed, let's say 1,000 people have started companies out of IITs. We only know the guys who have made it big. There are a lot of guys who are crushed, who are just crushed, but because they're crushed, nobody has no clue about it. So a lot of IITians have taken this plunge out of their passion, or let's say just because their friends are doing it, for whatever reasons they might have done it. But when X number of people have done it, certain people have succeeded, and those certain people have added a lot of value for the country. Whereas I personally believe the civil servants have not added that kind of value in comparisons to IITs. They might have added some kind of value to the country in terms of their policy making and in terms of their administration and all that, but I don't think it is comparable in any way. And I know for a fact that a lot of civil servants are corrupt to a large extent. Now this you can look at it as I'm generalizing, but I know there are percentages, and I know the percentage who are corrupt are big, and the percentage who are not corrupt are small. So if you ask me, I think I've answered the question that I personally root for the IITians.
I do not agree with the comparison, first of all.
Okay.
It's like you are comparing
apples to oranges.
Yeah, true, but more common in a sense. Like the apples and oranges is more connected. Because see, you are taking the 1,000 good IITians. First of all, there are a lot of number of IITs. All of them produce tons of IITians per year. And they have been doing that for past 60 or so years, right? So the number of IITians in this world is huge. Huge. Now, if you take that 1,000 out of that, you're basically taking like 0.1% or like top 1%.
I'm taking a random sample of 1,000. I'm not taking a top cream sample of 1,000. I'm just taking a random 1,000 sample of IIT guys. That's all.
A random sample of 1,000 IITians will give you like maybe one successful IITian right now.
Let's say
one or two.
Maybe he founded a company and that has ended up being $1 billion or whatever it is.
Yeah, others are they have those who have created their own business or added a lot of value to it.
And still 999 people would have been working in some kind of companies optimizing the processes. I would say 500 people are doing just others, and they're just doing a job and they're making money for sure. But a lot of people would be probably, let's say, product managers, program managers. They're always iterating the processes to make them more efficient. So, even civil servants, only if you take IAS, maybe the number is very small. But if you take the civil services as a whole, the numbers is still, comparable to...
No, it's not.
Their IFS, IXS, whatever
it's not. It's not even close.
But see, let's not make it a number competition, but just in terms of impact.
No, not just... So, that's what I'm saying. So, since there are so many IITians, so... taking the top 1,000, which I thought is very different from taking the top 1,000 here, because here the top 1,000 will all start including the corrupt ones, the inefficient ones and all. Like if you're taking the 0.1% of IITians and we don't have to take 0.1% of IAS, it's like 2 or 3 officers who are the best officers. So on average, per officer has added much more value than the IITian would have.
Do you really feel that?
They've changed the nation, they've changed the country.
But don't you think they really have strong,
India,
political holds on them that they cannot like straight up come up with some regulation? I know, I'm not saying this is the officers' fault, because they are following a preamble, whatever the constitution that is laid off. They have a certain set of powers. They can only, fiddle around in that realm of this thing. I completely understand that. But my pain point comes from this fact that, 8 lakh people or 15 lakh people are sitting in rooms in 6 by 10, 60 feet rooms in Delhi and prepping for these exams, at the prime years of their life. The primes, people are in the 20s, mostly 20s. at the prime of their lives, for let's say for 10,000 government services roles, some 8 lakh people or 10 lakh people are sitting in those cubicles and reading things over and over again, draining away the prime of their life. You know how, don't you think that's a dreadful, loss of resources for the country? These people are all well read. If they're prepping for these this thing.
See, it will come to the potential that a single man can do. A single man or woman or whatever you are. A single person can have an impact after being an IITian. Like a single person, potential to have an impact is not a lot. Like very few percentages will go ahead and make $1 billion business or maybe make a multi-million-dollar business. Very few percentages. So others on average are either earning a lot through their money, through their life, or maybe making some small businesses. Now the same when talking about an IAS officer, a single man or woman or person has the potential to impact the economy of a huge region. That huge region will be comparable to big businesses. The whole total economy that they are making. An IAS officer at the age of like 50, 55 is impacting pretty much the revenues and the total GDP of parts of countries. Yes.
But I personally feel what you said applies exactly in the opposite way. I'll tell you why. What you said was that a single IITian could go and do something, rest of them are just earning for themselves, something like that. And the IAS officers, you say one person can make a lot of impact. Yeah. But I personally feel that's the exact flip, because let's say an IITian goes higher. 1,000 IITians tried, one guy worked, and let's say he built $100 billion business. Take Bhavish Agarwal, for instance. He's from IIT Bombay. He built Ola, and then he built Ola Electric, which have cumulatively optimized the country's, the taxi systems, and now the electric is in itself is a huge revolution that he has put the seats. Nobody can take that, nobody can take that shine away from Bhavish Agarwal. Just like nobody can take shine away from Elon Musk for putting electric cars on the map. Nobody can take this away from Bhavish Agarwal in India. That single person has started an entire revolution.
That person has worked really hard. Yes. I get that. I get that. Has worked really hard, very smartly. Probably him being an IITian would have been one of the reasons why he was successful. Could be. But he did not invent this whole thing. Like e-taxis were part of regular life outside India, right? So, calling taxis, you're talking about Ola, right? Calling Uber, taxis through your Ola and Uber. So you're calling taxis through your mobile and calling them and like having an app or something was not something that was invented in India. He was the one who saw the opportunity outside and thought that we could just implement it at scale in India. As India being so huge will become $1 billion company. That is not something he invented, and that just makes him a normal person rather than being a special person. He was the first person to be smart about it and do it, but if not him, somebody else would have done it anyways. It's not something that is just out of the blue.
I agree with the last point that if not him, somebody would have come in a few years later and would have done that. I completely agree with that. But him not inventing this thing doesn't make any difference. I personally feel that the reason being there are a lot of things that are there across the world, but getting some of that and starting in India and twisting it to Indian scenarios and then making it work in India is the whole challenge. That is the first thing, right? And the second thing is, let's say he did that. Let's say you can't really credit him so much for Ola. What do you think about Ola Electric? It's a revolution that Bhavish Agarwal has started from. Yes, the electric scooters existed, from let's say 2010. I had electric bicycle in 2011. Ampere. I had an electric cycle in 2011. But those are exceptional rare case scenarios. He brought it to the mainstream. He is selling 40,000 units a month. He is expecting to sell 100,000 units a month. He has pushed the market for Ether also, though he has done it. Though he is pushing for Ola, Ether has also boosted its sales in proportion, and then a lot of other companies, TVS, Hero, they all launched a lot of things. So he has ignited that entire revolution, and he has started a factory in, Hosur, where he has employed like 10,000 women, only women, and is running the facility only by women.
Yeah.
So this is not like a trumpet for Bhavish Agarwal for anyone. I'm just saying one IITian or one person in the business domain.
He did trump every single and even the highest impactful IAS officer, maybe.
Absolutely. absolutely
He trumps
nonsense.
he trumps him.
But you tell me one IAS officer who has, say, changed the
I don't know.
because the reason being, the IAS officers don't have the domain of power to, draft policies and just get them out. They have to be politically appeasing. They have to be, gotten through their bosses. Now, none of these are mistakes of the IAS officers, but the system is that. Now, my problem is that so many people are trying to get into that shit system.
Yes, they are just wasting resources and time and their energy.
Their resources, their time and their energy. I have no say on that, but I just feel sad about it. And the thing is that the motivations are also not good. That is what another main problem for me is that the people who are trying to get into these civil services, the motivations are not in the right place. They want to, do better for their family. Of course, that is a noble thing, absolutely. But trying to get into civil services so that it is safe, or so that just because you will get a lot of power, and then that once there is power, there is tendency to abuse.
Yep.
Tendency to abuse it.
Yeah.
Some people might restrict their tendency, but the tendency is always there to abuse it, and a lot of people give in to the tendencies.
Yeah.
So these people, keeping that in mind, or keeping all that the financial gains, the off the charts financial gains in their mind, and trying to get into these places, it really is not helping themselves, not helping the country, which is not. Whereas in the IIT case, people are taking risks. Some people are losing out their own careers, but if they win, they are winning, and the country is winning.
Yeah, so India being such a huge country, so I know that in other countries also they have civil servants, and not all of them takes exams. A lot of them are taken as very normal jobs. People have very neutral preferences in getting into civil services or the private sector. In some places it's so hard that people just don't try it for it, because they are clearing the interview is just really that hard that people just don't try for it.
It's just another job in different. Let's say give us the bureaucracy. It's just another government job.
Yeah.
The amount of skewed nature that we have towards it, that doesn't exist anywhere.
And that will come with the population that we have. It will always come.
Do you think it's the population, or do you think it's the our need for a safety net? Let's say Indians, we coming from our parents' generation have struggled to get into white collar jobs, and so they want the best for their children, so they push them towards it. Do you think that kind of formulates this opinion for people that whatever, if this happens, the life is set, the life is changed, all of this kind of thing? Do you think that safety net arises from
safety and security is definitely one of the reasons. See, I know that people who are right now in like 50s, their children are being pushed. Most of their children are being pushed to become some sort of civil servant. Maybe the parents who are right now 30, the percentage is much lower who are trying to aim that for their children. So because the parents who are right now in their 30s, they've seen the job market shift. They've seen how many opportunities now there are. While those who are in 50s, they just know that getting government job is the only way to get a sustainable way of job. Otherwise you can be just fired, and there are just not enough opportunities for you to get back into job again. You go to a factory and try to become a line manager or something like that. Even people who have good graduate degrees and all, because there's just not enough opportunities for them. There was not. But now people in their 30s know. So it's just safety and security. For our generation, maybe our kids will not even be urged that much to look for safety. Maybe we will just say that we will take care of you. You just try to look for what you want to do. Whatever, if you want to earn money through whatever hobbies you have, passion you have, that will be enough. Because even if they are earning sustainable amount of money and they can have some scope, they can just do that. We can take care of them. The parents of our generation maybe are not just very equipped enough, because India was also a growing country, right? So
back then, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. That the fact that we came from there and now we have ended up here. Do you know this thing that in the early 90s and early 2000s especially, a software job was not considered a real job?
I know. I was thinking of that way. That I remember this line, like the same line that you said.
I think I heard it from you. I don't know, but I heard it somewhere.
Yeah. So in like 90s, 2000, people who said they had a software job were like what job is there? Like there's no job like that. Maybe like you. He just didn't get a government job, so maybe he's just earning some 5,000-10,000 rupees somewhere. Even back then 5,000 was a bit high, so what is equivalent to 5,000 right now. So that was what was thought as jobs. Now after globalization, after like the early 2000s, when companies started filling up Bangalore and Mumbai, with their headquarters. Then people started earning in lakhs. Even in early 2000, people were earning in lakhs. So that's when people started realizing how enticing this world could be. Private job.
This sector could be.
Private sector could be.
That is when they started taking it seriously.
And I'm pretty sure that is when IITs also just picked up a lot of pace. Because I remember my year when I gave 2016, I think. Somewhere around that was the peak. And that means like for the past 10 years before me, so around 2006, 2007, it just started increasing
number of aspirants for
yes.
JEE.
Because that's
So
when
it
people...
peaked in the year you gave the exam.
Somewhere around,
2016.
I'm not sure,
I think
2016.
we went through this
Yeah.
graph and then it was started falling after
Started
that.
falling, yeah. So I think around 2014 to 16, somewhere around that.
Yeah, I mean, people didn't take the software seriously. And I also have this question. Do you think where these people are from, the people who are trying, let's say, pursuing the civil services exam, do you think that the demographics, not demographics exactly, the geographies of where they are from forms their opinion?
You're just bringing UP and Bihar into this, right?
No. I'll tell you why. There was this study that came out that said, before going into Harvard, let's say Harvard MBA, if you interview the class of a Harvard MBA on what they want to do, and you list down their aspirations, what they want to do after the Harvard MBA, they would give out a certain different varied fields that they want to work in. Some might say consulting, some might say investment banking, some might say startups, some might say
marketing,
say anything. A lot of different. Their entire spheres would be so different. If you interview the same batch after their 2 years of Harvard MBA at the end of their curriculum and when the placement season is happening, if you just interview them right before that, 70% of them will tell consulting and investment banking. Just the 30% of them would stick out to the other things. Whereas in the beginning, the percentages were very varied, like 10% of the consulting, 10% of investment banking, 10% of this, 10% of that. But as soon as they spend the 2 years in that Harvard campus, and then at the end of it, they're asked the question. The entire their aspiration is completely changed.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought this up was that how your surrounding kind of influences of what you want to pursue.
Yeah.
Harvard is one of the most elite institution in the world.
Yeah.
Being the most elite institution in the world, if there the people don't have that original thinking that they'll stick to, there they don't have the conviction of what they want to do, and they're so easily swayed by their others' opinions. Kid coming from north of India or south of India or any part of India, do you think they would have that condition, or do you think they want to be civil servants because they want to be civil servants, or they want to be civil servants because everyone is trying to be a civil servant?
See, there are two parts. First is the analogy that you gave, and second is the main question, right? So analogy that you gave is just, I don't agree with it, first of all.
The analogy is a fact.
No. That people do that, but it's not because they lost their original thought. If you are on a path and everyone is walking on a rose's path and you just see a thorny path, you will not go there to be original. You will just think what is the best for you, and that's what you will do. When people get into B schools, they have not the fullest of ideas on how the B school would turn out. And some are just interested in marketing, some are just interested...
By the way, Ayush is also a graduate from IIM Ahmedabad, so he's completely qualified to talk on B schools. I am not.
So some of them want to do marketing, and they are very interested in how the big brands market themselves. And some are very interested in how ops works for these huge companies like Amazon. So they have those interests. And during the 2 years of B school, they realize that to achieve their passion and all, they need not always just start away with their passion. So because that could be a thorny path. The rosy part to that could be you just get into consulting. You try to find the projects that you are passionate about. And with consulting, you'll just get that array of experience. You're working for 3 or 4 different firms. You can work for marketing for once, for ops for some other firm. And you get that whole wide range of experience for like 2-3 years. And then you actually realize your passion by actually doing it. Maybe you were interested in marketing, but when you just tried ops for another client, you loved it. So now you want to get into ops. Consulting is the smart option to do after B school because it just gives you that varied experience of a B school. Similar to how management trainees work for marketing firms. They are put into different, the FMCG firms. So they are put into different domains inside the firm. Consulting is the same way a management trainee works for different domains in the world, like marketing, sales, ops, all. That is this rosy path. You don't go on thorny path just to be original.
But you know, when you're on the most elite institution of the world, you can afford to.
Why? Just because you have wearing good shoes doesn't mean you just go on the only path. It's still better to walk on those even.
But you know, with all that privilege that you get from going to such elite institution, if you don't take a risk, who else will?
Why do you need to take a risk? You want to build a business, or you want to go into some non-consulting job?
No, whatever okay, let's say they didn't have that perspective coming in. I mean, of course, I
if you want to do marketing, why not join a good consulting firm? Because that will give you the brand, first of all, that you're part of MBB or the Big Four, something like that, the strategic departments. And when you get that brand and also experience by working with 3 or 4 different FMCG firms, then you join the best FMCG firm you have for for as a marketing manager, or maybe in the sales or ops. And also, a lot of consultants get hired by their clients. This happens a lot.
Yeah, because they know the person.
They know the person. The person knows the business.
They know the abilities of the person, so they know what role he fits in.
So this is the part of analogy, first of all. So I don't agree with the analogy, first of all.
Okay.
Yeah, but the second part was, I forgot.
The second part was that the kids from South India or North India, do you think them wanting to pursue a civil service exam, does that originate out of themselves, or does that originate from the, let's say, 10 other kids around them?
This question suits more for the IIT part, because they are just 16-17-year-olds who are pushed into IITs.
Let's say these guys are 24-year-old IIS.
But then these are 24-year-olds, so they should have some sort of responsibility for their own thoughts.
What is should have? Should have is not the
question.
What do you think?
They have more responsibility for their thoughts. And if they are getting influenced by their surroundings, then that by itself is a deterrent on them being successful in this domain. I think so. Right.
Yeah. Because I personally kind of feel, you always see this, let's say you see Goa. In Goa, you see a lot of people working on cruise ships. A lot of people working on cruise ships, you see they're from Goa or they're from Mumbai. They're usually from the same locality. Because just one person is there, then he talks to, how that chain reaction forms, and that is inside the community. And then you go to, let's say, Delhi or something, then where you see a lot of people prepping for civil services. Then you go to Tamil Nadu or Chennai, where a lot of people are playing chess. Because you know how the cultural phenomenon forms around a single thing, some guy does something and it works out, so a lot of other people start going around the same thing, and you see that very prevalent in one geography, because that maybe some person, arise successful out of the, let's say Tamil Nadu is a good example for chess. Yeah.
I mean, the region holds their own special values, like always. I mean, you're saying that a 24-year-old from some certain states are more
skewed towards
being a UPSC or civil servant, aspirant. That is true, and as I said some minutes ago, you're bringing UP and Bihar into this. So a lot of people from UP and Bihar are skewed towards civil service, and a lot of people actually succeed also, just because of their numbers.
Yeah, because a lot of people try and a lot of people succeed. Absolutely, yes.
I mean, you also see the culture of the power in UP and Bihar. So it's there. The Bahubalis are in Karnataka also. They are in Tamil Nadu also. Not that huge in number. Not that impactful. They have maybe turned as politicians or like people who hold a lot of societal power. That is just there in UP. You just have 3 or 4 people always trying to one up each other and trying to say they are the most powerful in that region. All of the politics, all of the bureaucracy is skewed by them.
So, do you think this Bahubali, this cultural phenomenon of these Bahubalis, all these powermen, all these henchmen, do you think the normal kid who is of the regular family
that's what
would,
I'm saying.
get tended towards UPSC because they know they can take these guys on if they're...
For them, even a millionaire in UP is much lesser than these Bahubalis. And that is true in the sense of societal power. So they just see this is the highest thing that you can achieve, highest post that you can achieve.
Yeah.
And that's what they strive to become. So a person who sits with these Bahubalis, a person who can influence or be influenced by them, UPSC, civil servant. Right? I mean,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You graduated IIT Bombay. You graduated IIM Ahmedabad.
Very unfortunate.
And you told me that you would also want to pursue UPSC. How stupid are you?
That is not a question for debate. We all know the answer. But No, I think that I'm a good lazy person. So like if I'm interested in something, I'll do, but I'm interested in very few things. Like pique my interest. So for others, I just become too lazy.
So yeah, after talking about all of this IIT, IAS, and IIM, MBBS, I mean all of that. I mean, of course, people have the right and freedom, all of that shit to choose what they want. Of course, that will anyways happen. But I would say, if at all, if anybody wants to pursue, a lot of people want to pursue the same thing. I personally believe it should be business. Considering the only fact that the business is the growing up pie phenomenon, where nobody has to take anything out of each other. They can just grow and grow and grow the entire pie, and the country could benefit as a whole. And if people want to do civils, of course they'll do civils.
See, I'll close it by countering that by saying that if business is, there's no limit for the money or that you can make, or the impact that you can make in the country, in the economy of your country or the world, there's no limit for the power of a civil servant. Even the biggest of multi-millionaires or billionaires would have to go and talk to a civil servant if they call them. But this will never happen the other way.
But that is not a good way.
That is not a good reason.
Because
see, just because that is not the reason to pursue. The facets of any job could include money and power. While business gives you infinite money, civil servants give you infinite power. Infinite. Even Ambani need to keep good relations with the civil servants around his area and the politicians and be part of that bureaucratic system. He cannot overrun it. One can argue what to extent that is true, but normal millionaires and billionaires, even average millionaire, would need to be in very good relations with the civil servants around them. What is that civil servant earning? Like a tiny percentage of what that multi-millionaire earns in a year. But even then, that person has to go and talk to the civil servant. So, if let's say talk about pipes, and that is the amount that you're generating, the business has no width of the pipe. The pipe can be really fucking wide, and a lot of money can flow from it. But at the end of the pipe, when you want to look at even the thinnest of the pipe, now this is just becoming funny. The tallest one would be civil servant. If you look at the end of the pipe, it would be much more taller than the business one, because you just cannot reach that level of power.
Yeah, like you said, we can argue on that about considering all the lobbying. Anyways, that's an entirely different argument. But yeah, I kind of it's the same thing. I just feel it would be much better for the country if a lot of people pursued business than pursuing these zero-sum games of civil servants, or let's say, that the civil servants, police, all of these things. Instead of pursuing that zero-sum game, if a lot of people pursued business or entrepreneurship, I personally believe that would benefit the country as a whole. So I think this brings us to the end of this fantastic episode, and thanks to Ayush for getting his lazy ass.
Thank you so much for having me.
For getting his lazy ass up this chair after a lot of persuasion, but I'm glad this happened. I'll keep this coming. I'll surely keep this coming, and I hope this guy is also there for a lot more.
See
you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.